Hey everybody, welcome to Modern Golf. These episodes are tons of fun. I'm having a blast doing them. This week is all about faults and fixes. So Martin Chuck here, coming to you from the Garage Dojo. This is a lot of fun working with you guys, and I'm getting some awesome feedback. Working through some bugs here in the studio. Sorry for the fractional late start this morning. Believe it or not, a lot more goes on to make this thing happen than you'd think, but we're learning as we go. We're having a blast, and we look forward to giving you some great golf content. So faxes, faults and fixes, everybody. We're going to get right to it. So the first thing we're going to talk about, common faults in golf. What do we see? I see a ton of stuff. You can imagine, I've been teaching golf 35 years. I have seen it all. I wish I should have thought about this. I should have put the picture of my awesome coach Aaron Olson taking a shanked golf ball right into the rib cage by accident. That was actually quite humorous. He was fine. The poor lady that shanked the golf ball into his side of his body felt mortified. He laughed it off. We all had a good laugh, and best of all, we got it on video. So one of these episodes, I will play that for you. Anyway, no harm, no foul. No horses were hurt in the filming of that shank shot, right? But let's have some fun with this. There's all kinds of flub ups in golf. Let's face it, I still flub, you still flub. If you can't put your hand up right now, you are fibbing, okay? Because we all hit them all over the place. In fact, the way I start my golf school is just kind of by standing into a shot here, and it's better effect on grass, but on a mat, I'll say, hey, watch my head, everybody, and I'll purposely top a shot. And you could see how they pushed that ball into the mat. It popped up and it went wherever it went right there because you couldn't see it kind of go to screen. But trust me, I topped it on purpose. It's a little parlor trick. Don't worry, I'm here all week. But when I did that, I didn't raise up to top it. So let's kind of get into all the shots, the shanks, the slices, the hooks, the heels, the stuff like that. We'll get through most of them today. I've got a couple of videos for you, and we've started this new section of the show called Why You Suck, hashtag Why You Suck. So if you put something on social media and put hashtag Why You Suck, there's a pretty good chance we may put you up here, and I might help you through your swing issue of why you suck. And trust me, I joke with that because we all suck at times. I played yesterday, shot 75. I know woe is me, but trust me, to shoot 75 for me, a life in golf, there was moments in there that I sucked. So let's suck and rejoice together in this, and let's get better at golf. So working through some of these things, common causes, common corrections, drill corrections and feedback. So chunking, why do we land behind the golf ball? Topping the golf ball. Let's get through some of these things. So let's start with topping, everybody. Topping can happen a couple of ways. I'm going to get an aim stick down here. I'm going to kneel down to kind of explain this. Let me move the golf ball back in frame just a little farther. And let's talk about topping golf balls. Not that we want to top golf balls, but there's really a couple of ways that you can top a golf ball. Here's the bottom of my swing circle. Okay, Stephen, give me a face on and down the line on this if you don't mind, so that they can see both of this. So face on down the line. Here is the curve, there's the vertical, and there's the curve of a golf swing as you would approach, as a club would come inside out into a golf ball. Now believe it or not, a lot of people just, frankly, they hit the perfect shank. They get the hosel right on the sweet spot. That ball skitters along the ground like it's a field mouse trying to get away from you. Okay, it goes pretty straight and it's confusing, and you just think that you topped it. Well, you didn't top it, you just didn't hit it with the part of the club that has loft on it. Okay, so we'll put that in the top category, but it really is a subsection of shank, which we'll touch on a little bit later. Okay, but let's talk about the top shots. You can top it a couple of ways. So here's the bottom of a circle. You can have the bottom of your circle be too far back to where the upward part of your swing arc is coming up into the golf ball. I call that the amateur top. I call this the better player's top, when your low point's too far forward and you're blading the golf ball on the way down to your low point. Or guess what, we have the plain old, hey, my swing circle didn't touch the ground. It hit Kojak's head right here, the top of the golf ball. Okay, so you have a couple different ways that you can top it. And you're like, Martin, I really don't want to know how to top it. I want to learn how to fix it. So let's learn how to fix these shots. It starts off with some good fundamental behaviors first and foremost. Let's go ahead, and this is, you're like, Martin, I've heard you say this 100 times for a good reason, everybody. Get your good hands on the golf club. Get your arms in front of you. Create that nice radius with your arms. And then when you begin, you'll start to get and tap this radius. Go ahead and tap, tap. And the measure we create from our arms to our hands, down to the top of the mat right there. That is the radius we're looking for. We don't want to stand in here and be too close to the ground. You'll say, well, Martin, if I'm topping it, don't I want to get really low and stay low so I don't top it? No, you don't, because guess what? Your brain knows, much like if you put your hand to something hot, you pull away really quickly. Well, the ground acts as that heating element. It doesn't want you to thump into the ground really hard, so therefore you pull away. So some of the elements in topping shots, it's going to kind of cover some of the shanks too. What I want you to be really mindful of is that if our weight goes back too far, everybody, you're going to stick the club in the ground behind the golf ball. So you're going to separate your elbows. When you separate your elbows, the club is coming up as abruptly as it can. That's the quickest way to do it. Do-si-do right there at the country western dance, okay? We want to feel like we can keep our transport our weight, keep our weight a little bit into our lead side, and keep our arms comfortably long. And if we can do that, guess what? You see no elbowing going on here. This isn't hockey. Okay, we want to keep our arms comfortably long, clipping the golf ball as we turn, rotate, and side bend. So if you're topping the golf ball, a couple of these little shots for you. Get organized, somewhat narrow stance, feet underneath the hips, golf ball center left in your stance, or center forward in your stance. Give me some nice radius, and just work on these little shots right here where you have some radius, and you're going through this nice and slowly. And hold this radius, people. Hold it a little extra long even, okay? I like my students to hold it for like 3 seconds. 3 seconds is fantastic, because if they can go here and hold it for 3 seconds, now I know that they have the awareness of not separating their arms. Because way too many people top the golf ball because guess what? They keep their head down too long. Yep, you heard it here. You go, Martin, there's no way. I only top the golf ball, Martin, when I peak, when I lift my head up. And I'm like, no, rubbish, as Martin Hall says, okay? That's rubbish, because what happens is we use the head as kind of a calipers on a brake disc. And when you're using your head as a calipers on a brake disc, the upper body stops the momentum of the club in the arms, and there you get the do-si-do country western elbows. And when that happens, the club comes away from the ground abruptly. Other ways of missing the ball, shanking the ball, and topping the ball. Jumping into the section of shanks and tops. Think about this. This club has to have a relationship to the ground. I've got my old stick mobility pull here, just a massive. Let me show you this from down the line. This is Ben Hogan's plane of glass right here. So you can imagine this golf club of mine has to travel somewhere back up and in, hopefully never outside on that right screen right there, outside that area, because if it does, it's got to cut across that target line. Let's use the bottom of this stick mobility to represent the target line. If I have a golf swing that goes back up and in nicely and then gets out, down, now it's going across the golf ball, it's coming down really steeply. Now, if you continue to go on this journey, you're going to take a divot that you can plant tomatoes in, okay? I like tomatoes, but I don't want those tomatoes. And I want you to feel like you can let this golf club work down to the golf ball, not get outside that Ben Hogan's plane of glass. So really important. In fact, if you have something really long like this, it paints a really nice picture just to hold it, turn, and feel like, okay, that's not where we want to go. That's more about where we want to go. How our body's going to let that club work down onto the golf ball without getting too steep. So, chunking. Let's move along to our chunk. Chunking is something that I tell you what, people do. Even great players chunk golf balls from time to time. Okay, and there's a few different things. Golf is a pretty darn tricky sequence of events, and we can get into the math of it a little bit. But let me explain why most people chunk in my experience as a coach. If we take a look at a dress position, and I took another aim stick here. Seems like my little pointy things are orange today. If we take a look at my shaft position right here and my trail arm position, you can see I've got an angle in there. There's a straight line. We'll call a straight line 180 degrees. As I start to bend that, I could bend it almost back to 90. But when we set into a shot, we're set into our shaft and our trail arm have a measure of about 150 degrees, let's call it, give or take, okay? The handle's not way forward, the handle's not in line with our trail arm. We have a situation where we want to deliver the golf ball with this angle fractionally more acute, slightly more angled than where we started. If we have a situation where we take the club and we use manipulation from the hands and we get this angle a little more in line with 180 degrees, guess what? The club's going to land behind the ball. If you do that a few times, guess what you're going to do? You're going to hit the ground really hard. Your brain's going to say, hey golfer, you better get up out of the way because I'm really tired of you rattling my fillings loose by hitting the ground really hard. So I want you to recognize that we have some angles in golf that are imperative. When you look down, you're going to see the shaft and your trail arm. So my right arm, we know what 180 degrees is, that inline condition you see on the left screen. Address is about that neutral condition where we see the difference between forearm and shaft. Our job is to go ahead and hit a golf ball with a little bit more acute angle in the trail wrist than where we started. And if I show you that again, take a look at what's happening to my right shoulder. And then take a look at what's happening to my left hip. You start to see the sequence of events that allows you to have that slightly acute position in the trail wrist that will allow you to touch the golf ball and then brush the grass. So most of the chunkers, chunky chunkersons, okay? If you're chunky chunkerson, typically you started golf and you did something like this. You're trying to help Whitey into the air. That's not your job. Your job is to use the loft to understand that our momentum of our swing goes onto our lead side. We deliver a little bit more acute angle with the trail arm and the shaft than where we started. And if you just, at home, what I want you to do, grab a golf club, a couple of minutes, get yourself in the reflection of your slider door or your mirror, and just take a club, hold it off the ground a little bit, and just kind of model this right here, modeling impact. This would be address. The pelvis opening, weight pressure going into my left heel, this little angle coming in, the trail shoulder getting closer to the ground. And people say, well, Martin, if my trail shoulder gets closer to the ground, aren't I going to chunk it? And I say, no, you're not going to chunk it, because if this gets closer to the ground and this didn't change, yeah, you chunk it. But good players have this behavior of letting the weight of the club stay behind their hands. The weight of the club stresses their wrist back, and they can rotate a little bit, clip the golf ball, brush the grass, and angel sing as the golf ball is hit sweetly out of the middle of the face. And that's our goal, because that is the drug of golf. Sweet shots out the middle of the face. So chunkers, okay? One little last thing on chunking. I want you to consider setup. Again, I'm going to come back to a great setup. The great Jack Nicklaus, love Jack Nicklaus, he said 90% of the success of a shot is determined at address. And I tell you what, a lot of that's true, because I don't know if it's 90%, and I'm not going to question Jack's wisdom, but if you come into a golf ball and you haven't created this great radius, now maybe you have comfy arms. Maybe you're a little too overbent. Maybe the math of your golf swing doesn't make sense for the dynamics that's about to happen in your swing. So if you take great care to get organized, create nice math, take that measure to the tips of the mat, or just, I don't ever rest the club on the ground, because if I did, I may have different math that I can't dynamically manage. So chunkers, okay, a little bit like topping, same kind of thing. Manage your radius. Those little half shots that I just displayed a little while ago, that's pretty cool. Let's see if we can go to, let's go to JC Video and see if we can take a look at a slow-mo here of address and impact. And if we can't, that is absolutely okay. I'm going to go ahead and hit a shot here, but you can imagine as I hit this shot into the net, it's interesting, when you watch that swing, you can't, it's such a blink of time. The golf club starts back and impact happens slightly over 1 second. So when you look with your eyes, it's like being fooled by a magician, a parlor trick, face to face at some fancy bar somewhere where they're moving the shells around and freaking you out because you can't really see what's going on. Everybody thinks that in golf, our job is to start and deliver the club exactly where we started, where really the best players, the club is kind of in a lagging condition, athletically collecting the golf ball, overtaking and taking us to a finish. So hopefully those little bits on chunking and topping help you. Let's go into hooking. I've got a video here. We got one of my buddies who's coming to a golf school. Let's break out to take a look at my friend here, who is so funny. He's come back to his third golf school. This is actually the slicing video. So here's the hooking video. Fantastic. Charlie, I'm looking forward to seeing you, buddy. Let's go ahead, and this is going to roll here in just a second. What's good fun about this is he was a slicer when I met him. Well, now you look at his posture and you go, man, that looks pretty good. Here goes the club. It's going back inside. This is usually a slicer technique, but he fixed the slice to a fault. The club face at the top with his driver, okay, is pretty strong. I know it's a small video, tough to see, but it's certainly not in a wide open cuppy position. Don't worry, I have a great student that's going to demonstrate the wide open cuppy in just a second, and she's really worked hard to fix it. So Charlie went from slicey slicerson to a very inside out delivery. You know, youngish fella, I want to say he's around 30 years old. You can see his arm depth right there, and I talk about arm depth a lot. It's really important. So Charlie's got a lot of arm depth right here, and it's a little probably too deep. And guess what? As that club starts in that position we call P5, and then you can see this club work inside out pretty extremely with a strong face. So he's somebody that every slicer would like to be for 5 minutes. But then when you get on the other side of the curve here, right? This ball is curving more than we want the opposite way. That's his club path heading out to right field compared to where he was aiming. His face is a little too strong, and guess what? All that fancy little green squiggly in there, that's the face to path differential, and when it's that severe, that ball is going to go left, 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 okay? And you can see his chest is very closed, his exit's very high, and that is a one-way ticket to Slicerville, and left rough or a lot of blocks. Let's say he hit that ball on the heel, that thing would go and block quite a bit. So let's go back face on down the line and let's talk through the hooking issue. You know, so you see me face on down the line and we have a target line. Let me put down a couple of sticks here to really represent target line. I'll use this white one. So there's my target line, okay? So face and path, okay, there's my club face. If my face is closed to my path, and just to make this really extreme, some people just hook the golf ball by aiming too far to the right. I had a very talented player come out and take a lesson a couple of days ago, and we didn't put any sticks down, so when I meet somebody for the first time, I just like to have them hit golf balls. No aim station, no golfer's toolbox, no aim sticks to help. I just want to see where they instinctively aim, and sure enough, the person had a bias of rightward aim. Now we had the launch monitor, had the foresight. Guess what? The club was traveling to inside to out. With his irons, his swing circle, his club path was traveling 7-8 degrees inside out. So kind of like Charlie, that video you just saw, the club was traveling to the right of straight. And if his face happened to be pointing where the club path was going, he just sends a nice shot to the right. That's frustrating. If the club face is turned and it's aiming at the target line, the ball starts where the face is pointing and curves away from the path. So the path is going 8 degrees to the right, and his face is pointing straight. Guess what? Ball starts pretty straight and misses to the left. So when you saw Charlie swing, you saw a lot of elements where he had a lot of arm depth. The chest was still closed when he got to impact. And I'm like, Charlie, man, you really listened from that first golf school. Well, you didn't have one little slice of cheesecake. You ate 14 cheesecakes. He overdid it, people. And that's one of the things you have to be careful when you take a lesson, is take little bites of what the information you get. Make sure it doesn't shock the system so much that you go from a slicer, which he was one of these steep and over the top peely faders, to somebody that started having trouble by hitting too much hooks. Now don't get me wrong, it was a stronger ball flight. He hit some bombs, he liked it, but we had to get him more into a controlled situation. So to do that, I'm saying, great, Martin, that's fantastic. Thanks for sharing your story about Charlie, but how do I fix it? I hit hooks. So first thing, when you hit hooks, you have to have an understanding of your target line. This is the zero line, and some people that hit hooks, I'll just take a big long rope and I'll run a 30-yarder down there on my lesson tee at a golf school for that person, to look down there and go, all right, I see where the target line really is. And then when you walk into a golf ball, it's a lot easier for the golfer to kind of get into a parallel relationship with this target line and not exacerbate things by aiming to the right when they don't even know they're aiming to the right. A lot of people aim to the right and come over the top. We'll talk about slicing in just a second, okay? But Charlie had a nice grip, nice wrist conditions, just the closed biases. So once he kind of started to realize, hey, there's my zero line, there's my target line. I use those synonymously, zero line, target line. He realized, wait a second here, my club path, my chest is too closed. On the down line camera, you can see too much of my chest. We need to feel like the chest can open somewhat so that the bottom of this swing circle can work down, touch on the target line, and then work to the left. If I hit a little shot here, let's see if we can hit this a little. I'll hold this finished. Let's go to foresight for a second. This little shot of chest opening. Okay, so there's a little strike. There's a ball with a baby draw, but you can see, and I'll hit one more with this screen up so you can understand this. Here's the big difference here. Let's go ahead and hit one more of these. And then do me a favor, Stephen, let's hold on the delivery stuff. Let's hold on so I'm aiming square down my target line. Here was Charlie a moment ago, hitting the ball with a very closed chest. Okay, and there's a big ropey hook, kind of like Charlie hit it a little while ago. Now when that goes to the club delivery screen, let's kind of stop on that club path number. Let's see here, let's click on the one that is, let's go to that one on the top left, right there, boom, yeah. So there's a club, you can see the path, that shaded wedge behind the club head, that's 15 degrees inside to out. Okay, with a face angle that was 3 degrees pointed to the left. Guess what we got there? A really ropey hook. We had 2,500 RPMs of tilted spin right there. Hook sauce all day long. Let's go back to live screens for a second. What you saw what I did there is I hit a golf ball purposely with a closed chest. For those of you hooking it, you know what? You're afraid of hitting it left. Once you start hitting it left, you're like, oh, don't hit it left. And then we try to block. We keep our chest more closed, and guess what? Now our path is more inside out, and the face has a tendency to roll even more. When you're hooking it, you have to say, you know what? Okay, left side, I'm not afraid of you anymore. And you've got to feel like you can open that chest up. Let me hit one more shot. Let's take a look at it on foresight, and then we'll get to the slicers, because there's probably more of you out there. So here is, watch this chest face on down the line. I want to feel like, if you're a hooker of the golf ball, let's get that chest opening. Okay, there's a little strike out there, a pretty straight shot, we like that. We're going to stop on that club path delivery again when it populates here in a second. And you'll see that that club path delivery is pretty spot on. I'm going to guess it's pretty much around zero-ish. Just because I've been doing this for a while-ish, and the feel of it, oh, look at that, 0.3. So that's a club kind of traveling down Main Street, a pretty good chance of hitting a golf ball straight. Now that face was a tick closed, 1 degree closed, so that ball went a little bit left. So anyway, I hope Charlie's doing great. You know, Charlie's coming to see me in July at Grand Geneva Resort with his father. We are going to have a blast. Now, this is hysterical. Slicer to hooker to hopefully straight ball hitter, Charlie. We will see you in July at Grand Geneva Resort in South Wisconsin. It's going to be a hoot. Now, let's put up our slicer. And I'm super proud of this lady. Let's go to the video of our slicer. This lady, next video, please. Thank you. She works so hard. Watch this. So this is one of the first swings I watched her make. Okay? Super athletic, tall lady, puts her hands on fantastic. Watch this club face coming down here. It is wide open late in the ball game. Okay, people? So that right palm of hers is facing the sky. That back of her left wrist is facing the sky. That loft is facing the sky. You got it. And watch as this gets delivered. She's going to hit, for her great physicality and a lot of nice stuff, she's going to hit high, weak shots. Weights back on her trail foot. Exit, opposed to Charlie. Charlie's was up high into the sky. This one is way left across her body, and that's what slicers do. They try to figure out how to how to get that face square. Now on the right screen, she came back for a golf school in the same year actually, came to Phoenix. Check out this. Coach Jim Waldron, one of my assistants, look at that face now. That face pretty shut. This is an extreme example, people, right? This is a face that Coach Jim said, okay, let's get this face a little bit more organized. Rather than wide open, let's get it a little bit more shut. Now watch the drill we have her doing. I'll explain it to you in just a second. And I love this reaction. Okay, I'm going to show you this linked up here in a couple different ways. And we worked really hard on the left screen. That was in Tahoe last year. This was earlier in the year in Phoenix on the right screen. Now watch this delivery. Watch how these hands come back down and how the face stays organized. Ooh, that makes the golf coach just like super happy right there. And you can see this little exercise. You slicers are about to learn this drill, and I'll show you. And so she hits this shot out there. She turns around to the camera, and look at that awesome smile. We love that. Yes. Okay, let's go to the cameras. Let me show you. We're going to set this little exercise up. I have got the plane station right here. And on grass, of course, you just take sticks and you stick them in the ground however you want. But when you don't have that, you can use the plane station. Now I've got double plane stations because why not? If you can have one, why don't you have two? But I'm going to take this stick out and I'm going to show you this exercise that was fantastic for her. Pop this in here, put this on my target line. And this was what we had her do. We gave her an extreme exercise, okay? So down, you can see where that is. Give me a down the line if you don't mind for a second, Stephen. Fantastic. We had her, or Big Jim, my coach, said, okay, let's go. Let's kind of learn how to have this face a little bit more organized. Because I'll tell you what, 9 out of 10 dentists agree, okay, that most golfers that come to my golf school are going to whip the club inside, okay? And that's typically what happens. Christine whipped the club inside. So we put this here so she couldn't do that. So she did a great job of taking the club back with a club face a little shot. Okay. You saw at the top she managed her wrist conditions. This is easy to do, people. This is comfortable to let this lead wrist cup or extend. And what does that do to the face? It twists that face open, right? So now when she came down, the face was wide open. She had to back out of it and try to swing really hard left to make the ball go sort of straight and not go right of Rush Limbaugh over there, okay? So with this exercise here, and do this, get this far enough away so you don't smash yourself, and notice a little protective pool noodle on there. We had her going back, coming down with a strong face, and you can see how exaggerated to the inside is. And then as soon as you add any kind of rotation, that kicks the club inside out. And that, my friends, is going to create that draw sauce that you want. So we have to, when you are a slicer, you've got to fix these wrist conditions. So Charlie, the hooker, had great wrist conditions. He needed to learn how to rotate his body a little bit better to outrun that strong, powerful face of his, okay? There's other things we could have tweaked, but he needed to kind of learn how to unwind. The slicer needed to have wrist conditions and club face awareness. Big deal, because most slicers need to buy time. You say, Martin, what are you talking about, need to buy time? Well, when the golf swing is so short a period of time, such a short event, from takeaway 0.75, 0.25, or maybe 0.8, 0.3, but it's a short period of time. And whatever you wind up, you have to unwind. So when you wind up all this roly-poly open face stuff, guess what? You don't have any time. So how do you buy it? You back away, you put the ball forward, you give yourself time to give that wide open face a chance to square. The problem with that is you're gonna have a really hard time hitting shots off the ground. You're not going to be able to swing hard because you got to slow down so much to rotate that face. So, slicers, let's make sure you get your hands on there properly. You know, if you watch my stuff, heel pad, this is the hook of the hamate bone, that's on top of the grip right there, okay? When you get your good hands on there, look down and make sure that you have a little mild bend back of that lead wrist. I had a good question on from the episode, a couple episodes ago. Somebody said, Martin, can I just kind of start here? I say, yeah, you can start there. You know, Jack Nicklaus started there. He was pretty good, right? But this is a situation, if you start with your hands ahead and you have your grip on the left wrist nice and flat, it's my opinion, and by the way, probably 98% of tour players start with the club a bit more mid-body just to have a bit more freedom and whip in their swing. What we're trying to do is create this condition at the top where the wrists are organized, they're not too rolled and cuppy. You can kind of see what's happening with my trail wrist right there. And if I have that, kind of like our slicer, that back of the left hand's pointed at the sky, the palm's pointed at the sky, and now you have no time to really unwind that. So you're going to buy time by backing out and trying to swing left really hard so your ball doesn't go to the right. So slicers, organize those hands. Let's get those hands organized at the top. I want you to stop and look. Look at a flat lead wrist. Look at a bent trail wrist. Turn your torso, wind that up. Don't let that go. Don't you let it go. Get organized right there. And then from here, that's a strong face where the club head, from your visual perspective, is a little bit behind the hands. And then that's a face that every mother thinks is pretty right there, because that face is going to hit strong golf shots that are going to draw. Okay? I know mamas love your face, but they don't like slicey faces. Let's get that face in the right place, make everybody happy, and you won't slice it anymore. Oh, this one, stirring up the chili right here. Gonna chili dip a couple. We're moving along. So we're gone from hooking to slicing to chili dipping. And you know what? And I know I'm a little silly, but I gotta have fun. There's too many grumpy people in the world right now. Kind of upset me. So I'm gonna have some fun, and we're gonna talk about chili dipping. I don't want you to chili dip. You know, it's like you get by the green, and all of a sudden, you know how embarrassing it is. Maybe you've hit a couple great shots to this really long par 4, or maybe you're right up by a par 5 and 2, and you're standing there and you're like, ooh, licking your lips, and you're like, I can get this up and down to make a birdie, or I can get it up and down to make a par. And then next thing you know, this kind of thing happens, and the club goes, and it sticks in the ground. And you chili. You take that spoon right there and you stick it deep down in the chili. But it's not lunchtime. No. So what we want to do is create a radius and a measurement so we can clip the ball with confidence reliably. And you know, this is a tricky one because I've had people like captains of industry come to Phoenix to come see me, and they're like, hey Martin, you know, I'm a pretty good golfer, but I kind of chili dip it. Don't tell anybody. Okay? If you tell anybody, I'm going to have you killed. And it's like this. It's like they take this thing personally that they can't hit effective little shots around the green. Hey, everybody goes through it. The best players in the world have hit a golf ball a foot when they've intended to hit it 30 feet, okay, or 50 feet. Now again, it's about good math, good radius. If you start to build reliable positions, a pretty good chance you're going to start to have confidence in your ability to move the golf club reliably. So that's what we want to do. These little shots, think about this. I've got a sand wedge, you can pitching wedge, 9-iron, doesn't really matter. A lofted golf club with a leading edge, that's dangerous right there. So you have to learn how to manage this. And take a look at that sole. Say hello, sole. I see you leading edge, and I don't want to deal with you today. I want to deal with the middle of the sole or the back of the sole. So we want a nice neutral delivery through the golf ball so we don't get the leading edge. You can see what I'm doing, putting the handle a little too far forward. That can get stuck in the ground, and if you can get that even remotely behind the golf ball, it's not pretty. So a couple little things for you chili dippers out there. Get your good hands on there and then feel like you've got a little bit of, watch me put some air in my balloons. Okay, comfortably long arms where this club is measured nicely. Now, you can't tell on the camera, but I have a subtle push, and I am pushing through that ball, and I am still pushing right now. Now, I'm not pushing to where my arms are gonna take me into the screen, but there's senses and forces that you can't see as the viewer that I'm going to try to explain as the coach, that when you put in, it might just help you eliminate the fear of these shots. See, a lot of folks want to stand here and they feel like, man, I can just have these magical hands and clip these golf balls perfectly. Sometimes hands aren't so magic. I know I wish I'd like them to be, but sometimes they're not. So when you put in some mechanisms that can help, and those mechanisms are some structure. So there's me pushing my arms comfortably long, like those little tensile strength of the balloons. Those clown balloons you can twist up into a hat. I'm going to make 2 of them right now, my left arm and my right arm. Check on my ball location, kind of centered in my stance. Weight pressure is just a little bit biased to my left. Notice the handle is not way forward either. The handle is pretty neutral. And then when I push those hands, I'm pushing, pushing, pushing. I am not flipping, scooping, flipping, right? So if I'm pushing and I use a little bit of rotation from the big muscles, there's like, look, ma, no hands. Now, the tricky part of this, you still need to be able to kind of feel the weight of the club head for some rhythm. I don't want you to turn into some metal-armed robot, but go ahead and find your radius, narrow stance, weight bias, push those arms comfortably long, find that measure. Now everybody watch my chest, watch my head as I hit this wee little shot. Okay, there's a little shot that flew just nicely. See how my body stood up? Okay, please don't try to stay down, because guess what? You're back to the country western bar doing the do-si-do with those elbows. We don't want that. We want nice push. You see I've got a bunch of gizmos over here because I'm a big fan of external feedback. The smart ball. Put the smart ball between your forearms and this will pretty much fix this right away. And if it doesn't, you're fighting yourself really, really hard to try to do what you've always done. And Einstein says, right, insanity is doing the same thing, expecting a different result. So how about we do something different? Because the earth has been round for far longer than we've known it to be flat, right? So if you're stuck in that idea that, man, I missed because I lifted my head, I must have peaked. Well, guess what? That's not the case, because nobody's going to come move that ball. In fact, the GOAT, the greatest of all time, ladies golfer Annika Sorenstam hits her pitch shots. Watch my head. That head was rotated out way before I got to impact. She only won about 80 times. She only shot 59 in a tour event and dominated her professional career on the links, okay? So her coach taught her how to release her head early so it didn't stall her pivot, so she didn't have those do-si-do elbows, right? So that she could move her body nicely, and she got pretty darn good. All right, shanks for coming. Okay, shanks for showing up here. This is going to be a lovely episode of shanking. Now, when you look at the shanks, I'll tell you, the shanks are hysterical because they bring people to tears. And I've seen people get into the shanks, and it's like shanks like chicken pox. They have them for a few days or a few rounds of golf. The problem with that, there's a few ways of shanking it. Let's talk about it. And it's really, you know what? I can say it. I'm not going to catch it. Shank, 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 shank. Some people don't even like to say the word. I don't mind saying the word because I don't have the shanks. I might shank one once a year. You're like, okay, Martin, you're a pro. You know what? You figure it out. Let me explain it to you. And once you get it, then you won't worry about it. Okay? Now, here is a channel. Now, don't be confused and say that, okay, Martin, you got to swing in that channel. Guess what? Let your swing touch that channel. Let me grab my old mobility stick here and kind of explain this. Look, there we go. Steven's on it. Face on down the line. Check it out. So there's kind of the inclined angle of my swing where this thing goes back up and behind me down out to this golf ball, right? You kind of see that? But if I have too much of one or the other, guess what? Too much of over the top or too much inside out, my swing circle, people, okay, doesn't really want to land nicely fractionally after the ball. So shanks can come from a path that's over the top, where the hosel didn't get out of the way as you're slicing across this thing. Okay, and you may clip the neck of the club on your way to hitting a slice, or close to hitting a reasonable shot. If the whole club gets out of the way, you may hit a reasonable shot. How about the person like Charlie, who is a little too inside out? That club is working inside out. So that hosel is crossing the center of this little channel. We never want the channel or the hosel of the golf club to ever cross this little piece of fishing line, that invisible line we call the target line or the zero line. Anytime that hosel goes inside out excessively or outside in excessively, guess what? You have a chance of hitting it. So swing path can be the first thing to look at if you are hitting the neck. People will say, oh, I'm shanking it. Maybe I got to get farther away from the golf ball. There we go. Now I can't shank it, but you also can't hit it, so don't do that. All right? Get your good hands on the golf club. Get yourself organized over the golf ball. Now I'm going to hit a shot, and watch what happens here as I hit this shot. Okay? As I hit this, one of these sticks is going to get hit. Watch. Do you see that inside one get bumped a little bit toward me? Interesting. Because club's working down, collects the ball, stays close to the mat, taking a wee little divot, but this isn't grass, and works to the left. So that club landed in the channel and then worked a little bit to the left. That's my best chance for this 3.5 inch or 3-inch club face to get the golf ball nicely so I don't hit it on this rounded part that they insert the shaft into. Okay, so when you do shank it, take a look at club path. We want the circle of our golf swing to work back up and in, and down out onto the golf ball in the channel, and then back up and in. Please do not try to swing straight back and straight through. This is a circular side-on game, people. Okay, if we try to straight back and straight through, you're not going to get very good and you're not going to hit it very far. Recognize the fact that golf is a game I could play off a tee up here. If I tried to make the ball go straight back and straight through here, you'd see me moving excessively to do that rather than rotating in my circular relationship with a lot of speed. Now when I take that and I bend it over, I can let that rotate into that channel. As you look on that right screen there, that's a circular relationship that works into the channel that can clip a golf ball. So club path's a big deal. Now the next Shanky Shankerson thing that I see quite a bit is what we call extension, when the booty gets too close to the target line, because guess what? My handle's in front of me here, and if I am doing something where I'm extending prematurely, look at where that club head's going, okay? This is where I get the random shank once in a blue moon, okay? The club's coming down, I extend at the wrong time, that pushes the whole golf club farther away from me than I intended, and guess what? The old El Josel can get on the golf ball. Happens, right? If it happens, I'm like, whatever, move on, next shot. And you have to have a really short memory to be good at golf, a really short memory to move on and put your interest in the next shot, not what happened behind you, right? So shanks, crisscross applesauce of your club path, or a booty pushing too much. To keep the booty back, you know, let's make sure we're in balance, we're not way back on our heels, because if we're on our heels too much at a dress, we're going to find our balance, which pushes our booty forward, brings the hosel potentially into the channel in the wrong place. We might hit the neck. So feel as though you're athletic, feel like you have light heels, and then as you move your swing, the chances of you keeping your tush sort of occupying that same 3D space it started in, it's a little bit more likely, and then the whole golf club has a nice chance of traveling into that channel, clipping the golf ball. So that's pretty much the shanks. I see so many people say, Martin, I must be too close to it. I'm like, no. I'll do a little exercise where I'll take, and I'll do it for you really quickly here. You know, where's my 7-iron? There we go. Here's 3 golf balls. Now, I want you viewers out there, I want you to tell me which golf ball is in the right place for a good shot. Okay? So let's see here. Let's go to the 3-camera foresight. Let's put 3, oh, you know what, can't do this unfortunately because I have to hit one ball at a time. But you see these locations, right? And we'll go face on down the line, perfect. So here's my, I'm not gonna move my feet. Now is this one here too close to me? I don't know, maybe it is. Is this one better right here? Maybe it is. How about this one over here? Is this one perfect? Who knows? So did I shank any one of those? I didn't. The golf balls were 3 different places, different distances from me. My body, the circle of my swing, lands in the channel nicely and athletically, and you can do that too. So again, no crisscross applesauce with your club path, and certainly no moving the booty closer to the target line, and you're going to be much, much better. So homework for this week, okay? Here's what I want to wrap up with. I want to kind of teach you how to think about practice meaningfully. And remember a couple of things, people. Follow me on YouTube, okay? Go to Martin Chuck PGA on Instagram. Follow me there, and follow Tour Striker on Instagram. And check out the Facebook page for other goodies too. But here's your homework. Please get into your homework. Get yourself some kind of a range station. The Golfer's Toolbox is fantastic because you have a ball line, you have a target line. You're going to help train your eyes. You're going to be able to look at the target, and you'll have this relationship of your body and the target. And that's what we want, because when this goes away, we want to have that same feeling when we get on the golf course, okay? So this week's challenge for you, I want you to say, I'm going to make practice harder than I play. I'm not going to make practice leisurely this week. I want you to go to the range. I want a half an hour practice session. You can do that. I want you to find the worst. If there's a range out there, a turf range you can hit balls, go to the one that has no grass. Don't find the one that's great. Put the golf balls in muddled up bare lies, okay? Practice harder than you play, so that when you do hit a lovely shot in the middle of the fairway, the lie is like cheating for you. When you get to the range, if they have a fairway bunker you can hit shots out of, go hit shots out of the fairway bunker. You want to see the loneliest thing ever on the golf course? Is the fairway bunker that they have for practice on a driving range. The fairway bunker is like, why am I here? Nobody practices out of me. The better players do. You know why? Because the sand is not stable. It lets your brain work really hard to get your muscles working as you move. That's what you want. You want the challenge and all those elements that challenge your stability and motion, so that when you do have a nice lie like this, you can hit great shots. If you're always on mats, you're always on great turf, you're always propping the golf ball up onto a perfect lie, you, my golfing friends, are fooling yourself. Because guess what? That's not how golf is. Golf is a game where the golf course says, no. Rules say, there's your ball, play it as you find it. Now, some of you don't play by the rules, but you're probably allowed to think about it, because that's really golf. And you've got to learn how to manage all those conditions. So when you get on the range, we've talked some techniques, some faults and fixes today. But what I want you to do is challenge yourself. Practice harder than you play. Find poor lies. How do you deal with the golf ball sitting down a little bit where there's no grass? I'll tell you how I deal with it. I don't change a thing. I just do my same thing, hit the golf ball, because I've trained myself to build a great radius that can collect the golf ball, ground, and whether it's sitting on a cart path, which I've hit a few off of, I'm ashamed to say, but they've been pretty good shots actually, because the option of taking a drop wasn't as good as just the lie from the cart path, or hitting off a hard pan or whatever tight lie. Or how about deep rough? Find the edge of the range. Go where the rough's a little bit thicker. Understand that when the rough's a little thicker, you need a little steeper angle of attack to get the club on the golf ball. If the club's in deep rough, maybe you put your weight a little bit more forward. So that is your challenge this week, modern golf viewers. So this is Martin Chuck signing off. I'm super grateful you watched. Hopefully those faults and fixes, some of you fell into those categories. I'm betting you did. Hopefully that helped you. Now remember, this week's challenge, practice harder than you play. Get around the green in super awkward conditions. Get some golf balls on the range that you would normally never do. Practice those shots. Build some confidence for when you get challenged on the golf course. You're prepared for it. You'll take it on face on. So Martin Chuck signing off. I look